Imagine a newborn wildebeest on the African savanna. Minutes after entering the world, wet and shivering, it struggles to its feet. Within an hour, this tiny creature is running alongside its mother, keeping pace with the migrating herd. It can see, it can hear, and most importantly, it can escape predators. Now look at a human newborn, totally helpless, unable to sit, crawl, or even lift its own head. If left alone for even a few hours, a human baby will not survive. This is one of the greatest mysteries of evolutionary biology. Every other mammal enters the world with a basic toolkit for survival. Yet our species, the most dominant on the planet, starts life completely vulnerable. For the first year, a human infant is essentially an external fetus, entirely dependent on others to regulate its temperature, move its body, and keep it safe from harm. This extreme fragility seems like a massive evolutionary design flaw. Why would natural selection, which ruthlessly filters out weakness, allow our species to be born so remarkably weak? To understand this paradox, we must look back millions of years to the moment our ancestors stood up on two legs. Standing upright was a massive evolutionary leap. It freed our ancestors' hands to carry food, craft tools, and care for their young. But this posture required a major redesign of the skeleton. To walk efficiently on 2 feet, the human pelvis had to become narrower and more compact. Millions of years later, another shift occurred. Our ancestors' brains began to expand rapidly. A larger brain meant a massive evolutionary advantage, allowing for complex thought, language, and social cooperation. However, this created a biological collision course. The narrow birth canal required for bipedal walking was now at odds with the massive skulls needed to house our expanding brains. Anthropologists call this the obstetric dilemma. The female pelvis could not widen any further without making walking and running biomechanically impossible. Yet, the baby's head could not get any larger without getting trapped during birth. Evolution solved this crisis through a radical compromise. It shortened the gestation period. If a human pregnancy lasted long enough for the baby's brain to reach a mature state, similar to that of a newborn chimpanzee, pregnancy would have to last about 18 to 21 months. By then, the baby's head would be far too large to pass through the birth canal. To survive, human infants had to be born neurologically premature. Scientists refer to this unique state as secondary altriciality. Unlike other animals that are born relatively mature, or primary altricial species like mice that are born blind in nests, humans are born with brains that are only about 25% of their final adult size. The human baby is, in a very real sense, born a trimester too early. This means that the first 9 months of a baby's life are less like infancy and more like an external pregnancy. They enter a world of bright lights and loud sounds with nervous systems that are still fragile and incomplete, completely unready for independent survival. This extreme vulnerability created a profound survival crisis for our ancestors. A single mother, foraging for food on the dry savanna, could not gather enough calories to sustain herself while carrying a helpless, heavy infant all day. If human mothers had to raise their offspring entirely alone, our species would have likely gone extinct. The solution was a social revolution known as cooperative breeding. Unlike our closest ape relatives, where mothers rarely let anyone else touch their newborns, human mothers evolved to trust others with their infants. Fathers, older siblings, aunts, uncles, and friends all stepped in to share the burden of care. This collective network pooled resources, gathered food, and watched over the vulnerable young. It also shaped our psychology. Because human babies had to appeal to multiple caregivers to survive, they evolved to be highly social. They developed the ability to read facial expressions, make eye contact, smile, and babble to charm those around them. But the most unique pillar of this ancestral childcare system was the grandmother. In the animal kingdom, almost all species reproduce until the very end of their lives. Humans are a notable exception, with women living for decades after they stop having children. The grandmother hypothesis explains this mystery. Post-reproductive women played a vital evolutionary role by providing high-quality care and gathering extra food for their grandchildren. This support reduced the physical strain on mothers, allowing them to have their next child sooner without sacrificing the survival of the first. Grandmothers became the anchors of the cooperative network, passing down survival skills, cultural knowledge, and deep emotional security. This shared responsibility meant that human infants were raised by a web of relationships rather than a single individual. Our biological weakness forced us to become the most collaborative species on the planet. To make this cooperative childcare system work on a daily basis, our ancestors developed a practical toolkit of survival behaviors designed to ease the transition from the womb. The most fundamental tool was constant physical contact, achieved through the practice of baby wearing. Ancestral caregivers fashioned simple carriers and slings out of animal skins or woven plant fibers, securing the infant against their chests or backs. This continuous touch simulated the warmth and movement of the womb, regulating the premature baby's heart rate, stabilizing their body temperature, and keeping their stress hormones low. A carried baby cried less, which was essential for staying hidden from predators on the savannah. Feeding was also a collective effort rather than an isolated duty. While breast milk was the primary source of nutrition, it did not always come exclusively from the biological mother. In ancestral groups, wet nursing and shared feeding were common. If a mother was ill, injured, or foraging in a distant area, other lactating women within the community would step in to nurse the infant. This shared feeding network acted as a vital insurance policy, ensuring that a baby survived even if its mother faced temporary hardship. When darkness fell, safety required that this closeness continue. The modern concept of a baby sleeping alone in a dark room was completely non-existent. Safe co-sleeping was the universal human norm. Families slept together on communal bedding, keeping the vulnerable infant nestled between warm, protective bodies. This constant proximity allowed mothers to respond instantly to the baby's needs and breastfeed throughout the night without fully disrupting their own sleep. More importantly, it prevented the infant's body temperature from dropping during cold nights and protected them from nocturnal predators. Every element of the ancestral toolkit was built on the foundation of physical connection. These behaviors were not optional choices or modern parenting trends. They were the essential biological strategies that kept our fragile infants alive. For hundreds of thousands of years, this communal framework defined the human experience of raising children. But in the blink of an evolutionary eye, the rise of modern industrial society dismantled the village. Today, we live in isolated, single-family homes, separated from extended kinship networks by miles of concrete and busy highways. The cooperative network of grandmothers, cousins, and neighbors has vanished, replaced by paid services, child-rearing books, and digital screens. This structural isolation creates a profound biological mismatch. Human biology still expects the infant to be held, fed, and protected by a diverse group of caregivers. Yet we now expect one or two parents to manage it all while maintaining full-time jobs. To cope with this solitary burden, we have turned to technology. We buy automated swings to mimic the rhythm of carrying, white noise machines to simulate the hum of a crowded camp, and electronic monitors to watch our babies from separate rooms. We attempt to purchase the comforting presence of the village in the form of plastic and silicon devices. But these tools cannot replace human connection, and a lack of social support takes a heavy psychological toll. Modern parents experience unprecedented rates of burnout, exhaustion, and anxiety, constantly feeling as though they are failing at a task that was once shared by many. Understanding this evolutionary history offers a perspective of deep empathy. The overwhelm of modern parenting is not a personal failure. It is the natural consequence of trying to do the work of an entire tribe alone. By understanding our past, we can begin to forgive our struggles today. If you want to explore more about how our evolutionary history shapes the way we live, think, and feel in the modern world, please take a moment to subscribe.